Welcome to the Growth Shift. I'm David Zylstra. Here's what I've learned after years in business. Every leader who's built something meaningful has a story, but the moment they had to shift, when failure forced innovation, when change became opportunity, when they chose growth over comfort. On this show, we dive into those pivotal moments, the setbacks that became breakthroughs, the strategic shifts that accelerated growth, and the frameworks that turn obstacles into opportunities. Because here's the truth. In a world where change is the only constant, the leaders who thrive aren't the ones who avoid failure. They're the ones who've learned to shift strategically through it. So whether you're facing your own pivot point or just want to learn from someone who's been there, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. This episode is brought to you by Valentix. At Valentix, we help coaches and consultants who are struggling with generating consistent, high-quality leads, automating their client onboarding processes, and scaling their operations without simply adding more hours or headcount. Most of the time, our clients come to us frustrated because they're bogged down in manual tasks and feel like they're missing out on the power of modern technology. But with the right strategy and AI-powered solutions, they're able to streamline their workflows, attract better opportunities, and achieve sustainable growth. If that sounds like you or someone you know, learn more at valentix.io. Now let's dive into today's episode. Today on the Growth Shift, we're incredibly excited to welcome Lori Kirkland, the visionary founder of Deep Human-X. Lori's journey is a powerful testament to transforming personal and professional challenges into a mission for positive change, moving from a successful executive role at a Fortune 500 company to pioneering human-centric leadership in the age of accelerated AI. With a background spanning 25 years in tech and a deep understanding of neuroscience, it now guides leaders and executive teams to navigate the waves of change, fostering connection, flow, and movement in the workplace. Her unique insights into shifting from a factory mindset to a harbor mindset and leveraging AI to better serve humanity will undoubtedly inspire and guide our audience. Welcome to the Growth Shift, Lori.
Oh, thanks for having me, David.
Excited to have you on the show today. So, Lori, your career path from a successful executive role at a Fortune 500 company running product UX and tech to founding Deep Human-X is a very compelling narrative of finding deeper purpose. Could you share a little bit with us about how your extensive experience in the tech world combined with your neuroscience background ultimately led you to realize that leadership needed a fundamental shift towards a more human-centric approach?
Yeah, sure. I feel like, when I was younger, I thought this is what I wanted to be. This was the role. I want to lead, be able to really influence and lead at a big corporation. I had done, 15, 20 years of consulting before that, lots of different experience. But when I got there, I was actually surprised I was there for around 5 years. I worked with amazing people, like some of my favorite teams ever. But I really realized, probably because we went through it during the pandemic too, that the actual structure of traditional organizations, it's almost like humanity has outgrown it. So the things, if you think about it, so much is around standardization, processes, A plus B thinking, very linear thinking. And when I was deep in the role trying to make change and really trying to make an impact, I discovered that the actual operating system itself of the organization was pretty stuck. Now, of course, I've seen this through the years, but what came up for me personally was that I was like, this is really like sucking my soul. Like, I'm doing this great work. I've got great people I'm working with, but it's not really fulfilling me as a person. And then as I looked at all the changes that were going on in technology and just my experience over the last 25 years, there's a common theme that at least probably 50, maybe 60% of the success of all technology is really dependent upon how the people adopt it. And that's whether it's your customers, whether it's your employees, whether it's your team members. So you can spend billions of dollars on tech and realize that you didn't actually solve the human problem. So that money is wasted. That is not an uncommon occurrence. And we're seeing that with all of the AI changes today. A lot of the dysfunction of the systems really are getting highlighted much faster with AI, which is good. So as I was looking for consultants, looking for organizations to really help me with my team move with flow, I really realized there wasn't a lot of people out there. So I decided personally that I needed to make some shifts that would lead me to a way where I could, one, just be a better human, live a better human. Yes, I understood the rules of the hierarchical structure, but really it's about how can I leave work every day feeling great about myself and my contribution to the world. And then at the same time, I had a personal experience where I was widowed. So my husband died about a year and a half ago, very unexpectedly. So that was very, very challenging to say the least. Probably, the most heartbreaking thing I've ever done, ever had to go through and ever had to experience. But at the same time, I ended up finding a lot of strength in it. When you have something big that happens, and I had already been realizing that I wasn't kind of living the life that was fulfilling to me every day. I think my husband's death, Tim's death, actually ended up propelling me into moving, more acceleration towards deep human X, and really deciding that, look, we have to build the workplace for humans. We have to, people are actually wired to work. And we have this amazing opportunity with the accelerated change that AI is bringing. Like there's already a change happening. So let's actually use it to help propel humanity forward. We have access to new technology that we've never had before. And so that, deep hurt has somehow shifted me into I'm not wasting another day of my life. So that was my probably big moment, but it really has solidified and made what I'm doing every day, which is how do we get AI to better serve humanity? How do we use AI to better serve humanity? It's made it really fun to go to work. The people I'm meeting are amazing. And that's a kind of big overview of what I've been experiencing the last couple of years.
Wow. I mean, that's, of course, I have to say, sorry to hear about the passing of your husband. And, this is a really profound and impactful story and journey that you've been on, which, it's really easy to see how it led to such, purposeful work and purposeful direction that you're going in. Before we chat a little bit more about Deep Human X, I want to take a step back because you said something there that I found really interesting. I'm not sure if the audience caught it, right? You were mentioning that within the tech world, you noticed that a lot of these systems were stuck with where they were at and was causing a lot of problems internally. Right? Generally, when people think about tech companies these days, fast-moving entities, really innovative, a lot of exciting things going on. They do things differently. They think differently. I think that's, Apple says that, think different, right?
Love that.
But, what is it about, the internal workings of the companies that you've seen that really had them in that place? If these are truly innovative companies, thinking different, doing things differently, why was it coming down to a problem of systems internally having them stuck ultimately? What was the problem there?
If you think of how business works and you think of it almost like a river, like that, right? Everyone knows that the ante into the game is you want to make money and you want to be productive. Let's just take that off the table. Everybody wants that, right? We all want money to be able to do the things we want. But one of the things that I've really realized in all of my working career, and if you look, it's really probably gone back to the Industrial Revolution, where there's a lot of fixed processes that are so rigid and so ingrained, and tech companies are trying to provide solutions for those very fixed problems, when in reality what they might need is a little bit more flow. So less rigidity, a little bit more flow to experiment, to invent. And so I think it's not just tech companies, it's really all companies, right? Where what the big piece for me, the aha for me is that, look, we're doing all this work and analysis on all of the systems, and, are people active enough? Are they working hard enough? I don't know anybody who doesn't want more free time to spend with their family and loved ones, right? But for some reason in the workplace, we don't have any that are really taking into account, or strategies that are really taking into account all of the people systems, right? We as human beings, we all interact. Every time you go into a meeting, if it's a team that you meet with regularly, you guys all have a pattern. And so it's, there might be the person who always leads or the person who's always asking questions, but it's each team forms something, and each of those patterns of the teams then make up an organization. But even at the Fortune 500 level, there is not strategy or conversation or room for how do we actually include the people systems as part of the actual strategy of the organization. And at Deep Human X, that's where we're at. We're like, what are we doing? It's our biggest cost center. It's the biggest area where we have all these leverages. And so that's where we really have seen, and where I think the aha for me is like, wait a minute, somebody needs to be thinking about how do we actually, one, make work better for us individually and our teams, but like, why are we missing this huge puzzle piece of the bigger organization?
Yeah, because, as much as a company is its product or its service and what it is they do, systems aside, at the end of the day, companies aren't anything without the people who are in them, who are actually running it. So I think that without having an approach to people systems, as you're saying, a lot of companies are really missing out in a pretty big way, or negatively impacting themselves at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, to add to that, I think people are an afterthought, right? Somewhere in our society, we have gotten to where people are transactions. Maybe it was because of the technology, which I'll take accountability and everyone can blame me. And I'm sorry that we did that. But like, hey, people are not just transactions. But the way that organizations really think about people is, oh, I'm going to throw in a lunch over here or a mandatory culture thing over there, instead of being like, well, wait a minute, what is this person really good at? And am I having them use their natural skills to solve problems 20 times faster than this other rigid way, role and description that I've very clearly defined, but it doesn't work with the person that I've hired, or it worked for the person who had the job before but doesn't work anymore. It's almost like we've gotten so structured and we've held the job more important than the people. And it's like, an old mentor of mine used to say, it's like tripping over dollars to save pennies. It's like you're missing a really big asset that you have of as leaders, can we define what problem we really want to solve and give a little less rigidity, and going back to that river metaphor, bring a little bit more flow into saying, hey, this is actually what the outcome that I need you to achieve, and let you figure out with your own gifts how to solve it, rather than this is exactly how I need you to do it. This is standardized. Because the standardization worked really well when we had a very predictable landscape, a very predictable outcome. But look, man, everything's changing in the world. Between the pandemic, between AI, between the geopolitical divides and all of the polarization in the world, it's like, we're in a time of change. And that's where we have this opportunity to really lean on the people and say, wait a minute, community always gets us through if we actually let them thrive. And so that's where I see a big passion.
Yeah, with such a focus, or a necessary focus on humanity and on people within an organization, you mentioned something there that I think is really ironic, not in terms of what you do, but in terms of what many companies do, right? Mandatory culture events. If it's mandatory, is there really a culture behind it if people are being told and, I don't want to say coerced, but told that it's mandatory, they have to be there? Shouldn't they want to be there if it's a culture and they feel part of the community?
I mean, that's how we work as human beings. That's where you and I both spend our time, right? We feel better when it's our choice. And that's one of the things that we work on a lot, especially in a time of change, is like change moves at the speed of safety, right? And for a long time, safety meant very predictability, reports that said, oh, this is moving along this much, but that system doesn't hold up anymore. So for each person, it's how do you make them feel safe? That's where I lean on the neuroscience stuff a lot, the cognitive behaviors, the motivations. It's like, hey, it's actually a lot less work to get people to motivate themselves than it is for a company to try to spend the manpower, the brain power, the spend on saying, this is what you need to do to feel a sense of belonging. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really obvious if you just think about it, not from your role within a corporation, but really outside of it. It's like, look, we all like to do the things that like bring us joy and light us up. So why are we shutting that down and shutting down any type of individuality? And it doesn't mean letting everyone just do anything, right? Everybody has to have a sense of personal accountability, but it does mean maybe letting go of some of the reins so that you can actually start to go back to what we talked about before, to let people who may be stuck or disengaged, it shows up as disengagement. If you're an organization that's seeing absenteeism, you're working with people who, leaders who are like, my team is all over capacity and overstressed. Those are all signs that you've got too rigid of an environment and you have to start making some openings to let your, whatever group of people you have right now, let them start creating. And then when you get into a creative space, and that doesn't mean like artistic art on a canvas, it means like solving problems in a way that I enjoy. When you get into that space, all of a sudden you see momentum, you see inspiration, you see leaders pop out of nowhere that you're like, I never knew that person even had it in them. But it really is around individually wanting people to kind of be themselves and work towards a bigger goal.
So at Deep Human X, you work with executives and teams to transform leadership from fixed leadership into fluidity and flow, right? Helping them move from the factory mindset to a harbor mindset. Can you elaborate on your core methodology and who your primary clients are and really how it is you come in and help them achieve this?
Yes. So our primary clients are leaders. We really focus not on, I know there's a lot of executive coaching. We really work with a lot of people who have gone through that, but want to take the change and make an actual impact within their teams. So we work with a lot of leadership teams, boards, just groups within organizations where there's change agents, right? Where there's someone who's like, I feel like there's a better way to do this. But we have to figure out how do we move from the circumstances we have now into something new. Because the truth is, right, none of us have the luxury of just scrapping everything. But AI is kind of giving us this like freebie chance to be like, well, you're going to have to change anyways. Why don't we start looking? So what we do is help. We actually, our model is, again, it's a brain-based model. So it's based on how the brain quickly finds safety so that you can create choices. And that sounds crazy, but every time you're walking into the room, your brain is scanning 40 million bits of information every second to say, is this safe? Should I approach? Or is this not safe? And should I avoid? So you're doing it automatically. So our relevance model is based on that same mechanism that happens in a quarter of a second or over a long term. It doesn't make a difference because it's more of how the human operating system works. So we call our model the relevance model because it's about helping you quickly go through 4 steps where you're looking at what's the context? Where are you at today? Non-judgmental, let's just state where you're at. Then we help each individual very quickly remind them what are the things that they value and how does that value relate to the bigger picture, right? So that we really anchor in your own purpose or in your own relevance, because that's how you get individuals to shift or move. If you're telling me to shift, I'm like, wait a minute, I haven't made that choice yet. But what we do is get people to anchor in it into their own purpose very quickly or their own relevance very quickly so that they can decide then, how they can build their micro muscle of choice. Do I want to move forward or not? The third step then is called lessening the define, which is really around, and we're a very judgmental society, but it's around letting go of judgments and assumptions, limiting beliefs that we ourselves have created in our mind, because all of your life is a makeup of the stories that you created and the meaning you've made based on your own experience. And so we just help you see that very quickly. And then the fourth thing is where we use AI, but it's to look at your human operating system patterns. So what patterns might you be running that you may have decided sometimes when you were 10? Sometimes it was just based on this team you're integrating with. Your operating patterns that you have ways of winning because your body always wants to be efficient. But sometimes you rely on those patterns too much, and those patterns actually don't work for the circumstances or the context in front of you. So it sounds very simple, and it is from a very thinking metaphor, but it's really around building your muscle of choice. So being able to create micro moments of choice constantly and getting better at that so that you can bring yourself to safety all the time. And by the way, this happens. I just had a lunch where we did it with a woman in, 5 minutes to get her prepped for a meeting with her boss's boss. This is because it's brain-based. It can happen very quickly. It can happen very long and strategically and complex, but it's just working with your internal self instead of pretending your internal self isn't there.
Simple, but not easy, right?
Yeah, it's mostly because you're confronting yourself and you're confronting the things that you decided along the way were really important. It's not about anyone else. And that's where we're seeing with AI too, which is interesting, is that this isn't a type of thing where leaders can say, yeah, I'll catch up with it. My IT person is knowing. And that's where it's so important and why we really do focus on leaders because it's bridging business and technology. But don't fool yourself into thinking that you don't have to go through a transformation yourself to lead a transformation in a company. And I'm talking even the littlest transformation right now is requiring everybody to adopt a curious mindset and figure out for themselves, hey, what do I value and how do I move forward? Because if you don't really look at that, you'll see what we're seeing is the use cases where people are throwing hundreds of, millions of dollars at problem or at solutions, but they actually didn't define the right problems. It ends up being wasted.
Lori, do you have perhaps a story that you could share with us that shows how your approach led to a remarkable breakthrough in leadership or team dynamics or even organizational culture?
Yes, yeah. So I'll share with you, one of our clients is an agency. So we do work, actually, funny enough, with a lot of consulting agencies and agencies in general because they're people who are serving people, right? So we always work with a client and say, we're like, take a big problem that the organization's having, right? Like, and you can define how big or small you want to go, but it's bigger than you know an answer for. So in this case, we chose invoicing. It was a pain for of it's time sucking. People dread doing it. It's super manual. We joked that the interface looked like it was from 1995. I mean, it's like, I'm not going to name the system, but it's a very old system. However, the struggle is that they had all this data in there, right? Many organizations have that. You're like, I have these complex systems I can't get away from without without ripping the whole organization off and starting from scratch. Nobody wants to do that, right? So we went in and we took them through as a team. We took them through the relevance model. We have some, of course, GPTs and things like that we take them through. But we were training them to use AI. We were taking them through the model. And at the same time, we were facilitating them within a course of our most common workshop series is 4 sets where you do it over a month at a time. So you're practicing, you get a week to learn, practicing and going. And then by that time, people will know themselves how to use AI and then actually have a clear value. So we did all the logistics. Forget all that. The logistics were fine. But what was really interesting was at the end of this, where they came to is they solved some of their invoicing problems. But what they figured out more importantly was that they're a B Corp and what they valued, they actually decided to change and shift their organization from hourly billing to value-based billing. That's a big shift. That's more of a mindset shift than it is anything. And so what we created for them were new way that shift in thinking allowed for new lines of revenue they hadn't done before. It allowed for ease of the invoice problem that they had, right? If we're not showing our client every single 15-minute increment, like, does it matter? Do they really care? Do they just want to feel like they have control and autonomy? Turns out it felt like their clients just want some autonomy, right? So I think that's a huge win. And we help them just think differently. And now they're off to the races running. They are shifting how they're working with clients because of it. And because it's a repeated model, we've been able to allow them to move forward.
That's incredible. So, I mean, this approach not only allowed them to shift their own perspectives and perhaps some limiting beliefs around, billing and such, let's say, but also to expand in greater depth, right? New lines of business or new ways of generating revenue and, perhaps even demonstrating more trust in their clients or with their clients by way of, being able to take that understanding of value-based billing, not hours-based billing, right? So I imagine that even the employees within the company started to feel more value in themselves with that trust that they were receiving from their clients.
Well, you're like nailing it. I mean, trust is a big thing. And I'll just share with you that, so I know we were going to talk to factory to harbor. In the harbor mindset, where we want to go is that you are, as a leader, you're looking, instead of just managing a ship individually, which would be like the factory, right? What you want to do is actually start looking at, wait a minute, I have to start looking at the boats that are coming in and out and the connections between them, right? I have to have a safe place for people to anchor, for my team to anchor, for my customers to anchor. I have to be looking at what are the waves that are coming that might be changing. And let's be real, AI is a huge tide. So it's requiring us to shift. And as a leader, you want to be that lighthouse of like, where do we shine the light on what matters most? And when you talk about trust, that's what I think came out of it is that people learned to like trust themselves a little bit. The leaders had to be like, well, wait a minute, if we want to do this, this is kind of what we would need to shape and build. And all of a sudden, because individuals had looked at what they value and what their gifts are to contribute, they were like, I can do that. Or, oh, I'm a wayfinding person. I'm great, navigating unknown waters. Or, you know what, I'm really good at maintenance and I want to build the dock up so it's safe and secure. Or those people are drowning over there. I want to throw a life vest out. So that trust in individuals, one, it just makes you feel better. We're all wired to connect and we're all wired to contribute. And if you don't feel like you're contributing, it's hard to trust yourself. So in a way, yes, it very much builds self-trust. And at the same time, it's creating new relationships with their clients as they're going through this journey, which I think is just practicing more trust, right? We're going through the change with you, not at you or for you.
So, Lori, you're operating at the intersection of human-centric leadership and the rapidly evolving AI landscape, right? You're a coach yourself. You work with a lot of consultants. Given your deep expertise in tech and your focus on transforming human mindsets, what are your thoughts around the biggest challenges that coaches and consultants face today when it comes to cutting through the market noise and establishing trust in such a busy market to attract more opportunities and to scale their business?
I think that fear-based thinking is the biggest. I don't know anyone who isn't facing that, right? Like it feels like AI is putting people into three camps. It's like, yes, I've got it. And I'm just going to go and leave everybody behind, right? That's one of the let's say maybe 20-25%. They're gung-ho. There's tons of innovation going on, but they are doing it by themselves because this one of the trends, in case people aren't seeing it, is that this is an individual-led wave of change, which is different than that factory mindset where it's often the company is saying something. No, this is individual-led, and this is at all levels. The hierarchy doesn't matter because it's being led by individuals. The second bucket is people who are like, all right, I'm game, I'm cool with technology, but I really don't know what it means for me. So I still have a lot of fear around, like, you got to convince me. That's where I think a lot of coaches are really helping out and playing is saying like, look, I'm not going to make you do this other stuff. I actually want to help you uncover what you want to do. And that's a really great place to start, right? Is to just to address that fear that every leader, every C-level person I know, every doctor, everyone at every level is feeling that fear. And then the third bucket is the fear of being obsolete. I have no clue what this means for me and I'm just resisting. Those are honestly some of my favorite people in workshops because once you convince them, they're like, yeah. But that would be my advice to people is one, identify that we are a very fear-based society. We always are worrying about what could happen or us versus them or who could get us. And in order to change that, you have to actually calm the fear so that you can actually look out. You can move from survival to thriving in the workplace. And what that looks like is, wait a minute, I understand how I can contribute and I understand if this is the right organization for me or not, right? And there's a lot of that going on too. And so by addressing the fear that's there, that's where we see, and of course we don't talk about it as fear. We are like, what is your big problems? And let's look how we can make the individuals feel better about it. But once you really just acknowledge that the fear is there, just like anything scary, when you acknowledge it, it kind of loses its power. So that would really be my recommendation is figure out where people are at today. Where are they sitting? And that's your starting point, not I have the answer for you over here. Because if the answer over here isn't connected to this, that fear never goes away.
Off the back of that, I mean, you've built a successful coaching business yourself. Right? There's a lot of coaches and consultants out there trying to stand out, trying to achieve some of what you have. Are there any actionable strategies or advice or directions that you're prioritizing right now at Deep Human X to more effectively stand out, cut through market noise, and continue to build trust, especially in such a crowded and distracting market?
Yeah, I mean, it is the hype is unlike anything I've ever seen, and the noise of blah 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 blah. Now you have, I think it's 3.1 billion emails go out a day, plus they're probably getting more than that because AI is automating email. I mean, that amount of noise is really big. What is popping up, what I think a strategy is that's been really helpful to me is start looking for people who are talking about collectives, people who are talking about value-based, and I'm not talking religion, I'm talking value-based, like connection. I'm seeing a lot of communities that are popping up around the collective and that individuals actually are going to be the ones to make a change in this world. And so what I've done is I'm always exploring and trying to be well, what am I passionate about? That's where I'm going to spend my time. And the more I spend the time in the things I'm passionate about. I'm learning about myself in a way that's really fun. It's not draining, it's not soul sucking because it's what I'm choosing. And the amount of people I'm meeting is great. So look online if you're looking for like the strategy with all the mass content. Start putting out your thinking, start putting out what you're passionate about, start being brave and sharing what your company is like. Maybe lose a little of the professionalness and start speaking right heart to heart from human. And that is, I mean, for me it's been working, and I know I'm watching several other incredible people that I'm meeting up with that, right, we're seeing globally there is a big change of going to much more human centered, much more like let's do something that matters versus we all know we want to make money, so we want more than that. That would be my advice. Look for
So we've talking about a lot of the good things about AI and where a lot of the benefits come into play, but from your perspective as a tech veteran and neuroscience expert, what are your primary concerns about the impact of AI on human decision making and organizational culture?
My biggest concern is it's letting people be continuing to be lazy leaders. The big thing that I really get sad about is organizations that are approaching AI as it's another addition to my tech stack. And yes, it could be, but it's only going to really highlight your dysfunction in your organization. I mean, cultural, organizational design, that is so important right now. And it doesn't mean the whole thing. It means start innovating. So I really see lazy leadership, meaning I'm going to tell you to do this, you get this result, and not actually looking at is the outcome happening. That AI feels in the short term like it's allowing that to accelerate. But the good news is that AI is also, because it's speed, it's also having companies crash and burn pretty quickly when they're approaching it like that. So that's a downside. I really like suggest to any leaders out there to look at AI as like, what could it do to help? If I could free up 50% of my employees' time, what could I have them work on that would be of value to the organization? And start thinking about that. And that will help the jump to using AI faster, using AI in a better way faster. I mean, there's environmental concerns, there's all sorts of concerns. There's people are worried. I get asked about sentience, like, machines turning into living things all the time. And I'm like, well, we're nowhere near there. And if they take over now, it's going to be a really boring world because we're kind of having them do pretty mundane stuff. So I definitely have to approach or answer questions around that all the time. And to that, I'd say the environmental thing is this is the first technology that's working on its environmental footprint as it's growing, as it's expanding, which is pretty cool. So that's my only hope and promise around that. It is taking up a lot of power right now, but I also see that technology is figuring out along the way how to do it. So there's a
Which is
lot of things that could be bad about
incredibly
AI,
unique
but
and provides a lot of hope as well for a technology that might actually be able to solve its own problems and greater problems along the way as well. It's really exciting. Lori, your insights into human-centric leadership, navigating change, and responsibly leveraging AI are extremely powerful. To conclude, based on your philosophy of making change safer and riding the waves of transformation, what's the single most important piece of advice that you'd offer to our audience who are striving to build resilient, human-focused organizations in our rapidly shifting world?
I'm going to go back to the harbor analogy. Anchor in your purpose. When lots of things are changing, you are going to be the common denominator that doesn't change in any when the circumstances around you or the landscape is changing. Take the time to figure out what really drives and moves and motivates you in your life and anchor in that and figure out how can you bring that, because that way when you've got yourself anchored, all of a sudden the change isn't happening to you. You're navigating the landscape of change.
For any of our audience who might like to learn more about what you're doing at Deep Human X, or potentially even seek out a collaboration, what would be the best way to find you online?
I am on LinkedIn. Is super easy. So it's Lori Kirkland. And at Deep Human X is if you just look me up on LinkedIn, you should find me there. And I love collaborating. We are in a state of innovation, so anyone who wants to collaborate and work with us or kind of contribute to the greater good, please connect with me.
Thanks again for joining us on The Growth Shift.
Thanks so much, David.
And that's a wrap on another episode of The Growth Shift. If this conversation sparked something for you, whether it's a new perspective on failure, a strategy you want to try, or just the reminder that every setback can become a setup for something bigger, Hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, the leaders who thrive aren't the ones who avoid change. They're the ones who shift strategically through it. If you're ready to build the systems that help you grow without the chaos, head over to valentix.io. We help businesses like yours scale smarter, not harder. I'm David Zylstra, and I'll see you in the next shift.